Hi, my name is Chanda. I'm a singer, storyteller, joy spreader, and host of the Courageous Voice podcast. The Courageous Voice podcast gathers and shares stories from artistic folks around the world and their journeys through fear, courageousness, and creativity. Join us and get inspired with me as we chat about learning to befriend and walk with and past our fears to share our voices courageously with the world. Hello, and welcome to season 2 of the Courageous Voice podcast. Welcome back. This is Chanda, your host, and today we have the amazing Brenda Earle Stokes in the house. Welcome, Brenda!
Hello, it's good to be here.
Oh my God, I am so happy to see your face.
Me
Brenda,
too.
I know. Brenda and I have not seen each other in years, but let me tell you a bit about Brenda, and you can add later if I miss anything. But Brenda she is a singer, she's a composer, she's a pianist, she's a wife, she's a mom, she's a band leader, an educator. She makes music easy to learn. She's been doing this for eons. She's also the founder of an online music course called The Versatile Musician. Welcome.
That's about right. Thank you.
Yes, Brenda, there's so many things that I want to talk about. But I asked you on here because it's the courageous voice, and you have always been one, in my opinion, that has used your voice courageously since I met you back in the day. Can I say when that was, or are you hiding your age?
No, I'm not. I'm cool.
Yeah, I think we met back in 2004.
Yeah, it was that we met at band camp.
We met at band camp, and you were already then doing your thing, making music easy. But we met at a time where you were kicking it up. And I remember having a conversation with you. I don't know if it was 2004, probably after that, but you were just like, basically, I'm about to live this life. I'm about to do this. And since then, Brenda has recorded many albums. She's done many things. Listen, oh my gosh, where to start? I was just Google stalking you.
Ooh.
And I was watching this video of your latest album, the solo sessions.
Oh yeah.
And let's start there with this album. And you all can go to Brenda's website. She's got a beautiful 90 seconds all about me, and she also has a video there about this album. And it was interesting to me because you said it was a follow-up to your 2014. And I was just wondering for you, can you talk about what changed for you, why you wanted to follow it up, and your intention for that past, like your musical intention? I know you said you wanted to explore harmony and rhythm and improvisation, but talk about like this follow-up and what changed for you as a musician.
Yeah, I mean, I think, my son is about to turn 11. You mentioned mom. And so I know that lots of other, moms, dads too, but I think especially for mothers, like sort of our role and things. I had done this much larger project in 2014 called Right About Now that had like a producer and several days in the studio and a lot of musicians and a lot, and the process was great and amazing, and I learned a lot. The album did really well. I was very overwhelmed by the process. And so again, my kid was 3 when that album came out, okay. And then, years go on of being in the thick of the parenting thing. And I was sort of thinking about, getting back into recording again. I was still doing a lot of gigs. I had a lot of different things going on. And I randomly got a reach out from an old friend of mine from high school who said, hey, in my hometown of Sarnia, Ontario, Canada, he said, I just did an album of songs that our high school band director, made. And so, Adam Miner, who was my friend, reached out to me and said, the piano sounds really beautiful at the Sarnia Public Library. And like, if you're ever in town. And I don't know why I heard that that was a sign because I wasn't planning to do anything. I had a few things brewing. I was thinking about a trio record or something. And then this came up and I thought, there is very little evidence of me as a solo singer pianist. There's almost no evidence of it. And I realized that I had too many secrets. And
Okay.
I wanted to, secrets of like things that I do, things that I love to do, but that there's no evidence that I do it.
Okay.
And, so I think I stepped into it in that moment and said, well, I think I heard from him in April, and we were planning a trip to visit my dad in Sarnia in June. And I said, I'm going to just go for it. And so I gave myself, sort of 8 weeks to think about it and play and try some stuff. And I ended up recording sort of a unique collection of songs that I had recorded on other albums, songs that I had performed for years. Like one of the songs on the record is a song that I played at my graduation recital from my undergrad, like back in 1998, that I've played a
Wow.
million times, but I have again, no recorded evidence of. And then at the same time, I chose a few songs that I had never ever performed before or ever played before. So I really started with a super clean slate and said, like, what do I want to do? And
Hmm.
that's what we did. We recorded the whole record in 4 hours. Everything was
Nice.
live. We did like one or two takes of everything. And whereas the record before had edits and, the whole 9 yards,
Hmm.
this one was like the no makeup selfie of albums.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And I think that I saw or read that you recorded. Is this the same piano that you took lessons on when you were a kid, like four or
Yeah,
five?
it was where piano recitals tended to take place and piano exams. So there's a photo of me at age 5 sitting at the same piano. And
Oh,
it's a beautiful Steinway grand piano that lots of people fundraised to put this instrument together, and they've kept it in beautiful shape. So this was the stage that my ballet recitals were on when I was a little kid, and my piano
wow.
recitals and where I did all of my Royal Conservatory exams was like in this room. So
Wow.
yeah, it was pretty special. I'm probably going to follow it up at some point. Follow the follow up to do solo sessions volume 2, but we'll see how that plays out.
So you said an interesting thing about evidence, and you said it a couple times. I want to talk about that because that's
Sure.
like an interesting thing because I
Yeah.
know, I mean, evidence is so interesting. I think because I mean for me like I'm a big idea generator. So there's
Hmm.
all these ideas and then there's many things started or there's many things done and like you're saying they haven't been documented. There's nothing to look back and say, look, like this is something that I did. And I think this is really important. And I feel like not just at your stage because you've been doing this a long time, but I mean, even like you said, like there was one song that you did for like your undergrad. So I don't know like what your process and being like, okay, I want to have this down as evidence, but why was that important to you?
I think, and this sort of also again speaks to, fellow maybe other women artists or female identifying artists where, I feel like sometimes there were some things that I wasn't good at self promoting or, was busy kind of promoting other work or
My
not, like just
God.
the hiding factor, right?
Mm,
Of at some point, and I had a couple of instances in a row where I had been doing a lot of work for other people. And really promoting their work in a big way, more on the education side, but also on the performance side. And at some point, I stopped and I said, this is like a secret. Like nobody knows that this is a thing that I do. And I do this at an extremely high level, but no one would ever know it.
mm,
And I had a good friend I was visiting in Australia when I was on tour over there. And he said to me, how is anyone ever going to know about all the things you do if you don't share it?
mm.
And it's so obvious. And I'm hoping that somebody else listening to this will have this, it will resonate with them. But I'm like, am I hiding this? Like, how is it that nobody knows that I do this? And so I think that was a very big eye opener. And the process of doing this, that particular record, was really a chance for me to uncover that and share it and kind of move through the feelings surrounded that.
Mm.
Um, and it was a really interesting experience. And I did all of the publicity and promotion completely myself with zero help from anyone. and I got the best press that I've ever gotten in my career, like including a downbeat review and like the whole wazoo, which other people who I paid a lot of money to promote it said, "Oh, they're not interested. Oh, they didn't like it." But then when I promoted it, so again, I do feel that this is wrapped up in my identity as a female identifying person. I think that this very much ties into, you know, a lot of my experience as a younger artist, female artist who was marginalized a lot of the time or overlooked or not supported. So it was really like a moment for me to kind of step into my own work a little bit and say, like, well, if I don't do it, no one's
Mm.
going to do it, you know? So, I mean,
Wow.
you don't necessarily, you wouldn't necessarily get that as a message from the record. It's a solo piano voice record. There's no like battle cry songs or there's nothing that speaks to this. But as the internal process, it was really, really eye-opening to see what I was able to do when I just said, you know, this is worth my time to dig into.
I love so much. I love so much about that. And I do, I mean, look, you're inspiring me, so I'm sure that you'll be inspiring a lot of people for
Oh, good.
this.
I hope so.
Oh my gosh, I think I'm right there right now. I'm right
Yes.
there right now. Yes. And I'm wondering, did this process then push you to do the versatile musician, or are you already doing that?
So the Versatile Musician is an online membership, just so people can kind of understand what it is. And I had
Mm-hmm.
started making, so the other big part of my life is my teaching life. And that has been a really, really big part of my life for many, many years. I've taught a lot of people to sing and play piano and, you know, kind of experiment with that. And I started kind of dallying around in the online course space back in 2018, kind of before a lot of people were really doing it.
Okay.
And right in the middle of the pandemic was when I decided I was going to take it seriously. And again, one of the reasons that I didn't really go all in it, because I knew it was going to be a huge project, was because I didn't want to completely give up my performing life. And I
Mm,
can't do it all. I've
right.
realized I can do three things. I can be a mother and I can teach like my day job, you know, as a private voice teacher, piano teacher, and I can do one other thing. So I can't be touring and playing and recording and do the other thing. So the pandemic, you know, as for a lot of us, changed the game because I didn't have to turn anything down because there wasn't anything. Everything was
Okay.
canceled.
Yeah.
And so I said, you know, when is another point in my life where I'm not going to feel pulled? You know, now's the time. And so it was the same thing. I'd been doing a lot of teaching for other people. I'd been very, very involved in somebody who has a very, very well known kind of like vocal pedagogy brand.
Hmm.
And I started to realize that my investing in someone else's work is going to be a problem because they will never give it to me. It will never be mine. And I will never get the credit or the expertise. You know, I'll never be treated like that because I was never going to be, it was clear. And so it was sort of another thing where I stepped in and I said, well, I'm just going to do it. And so I spent this summer of 2021 working like 50 hours a week while my kid was like in camp or like playing Minecraft or like I was getting up at 4 in the morning and working for hours.
Wow.
And so I actually created this whole like business that has over 500. I think we're coming up to 600 video tutorials. It's like it's a
Okay.
whole, it's a thing. Like there's a lot of stuff in it. You know, we have members all over the world. You know, I have like a marketing infrastructure and a back line and like the whole, it's all in there. And so again, that was another thing where I was able to step in and say, you know, no, actually I am an expert and I do have a lot to offer. And it's not just going to be in a supportive role of somebody who maybe doesn't treat me with due respect.
Mm.
So it was a very, very cool experience to do, stepping into myself.
Okay, can I just say
Yes.
that let's see, when I was 25, what year was that? Listen, I'll just say that for years, because well, I just turned 48. So at least for 20 years, I've been asking you to start your own thing.
Yeah,
Because
I know.
be, so listen, but it's interesting because sometimes like okay, now this is 20 years later ish, 20ish years later, you're like, okay, I'm expert. Listen, I think that you were expert back then because you were like killing it. And I tell my students now, and I'm like, you know what? I don't know because I still kind of suck at theory, but what I do know, I was like, there was this woman named Brenda,
Ah,
and she got me through everything. I still have my notes from
oh,
City
that's awesome.
College. I have all the sheets that you gave me and everything. I still have them. And so
Good.
it's and it's great. And now I can say, oh, she has stuff on YouTube. She has this.
Yeah. Yeah,
Please go
yeah.
check it out. Yeah, we always do. Anytime
That's
somebody asks a
awesome.
question, I'm like, here, these are the videos you need to look at. This is who you
Yay,
need
that's
to like
awesome.
check out. Oh my God.
That's why I make them. But this is again part of my stepping into myself. And I don't know if this is because
Mm.
I'm 46, so I'm in my middle 40s. And at some point I had do you remember Susan Powder, that woman like who would scream on TV, stop the insanity? She had like short, spiky blonde hair and she had lost a lot of weight and she had this,
Yes.
it
Oh
was
my
a
God.
90s thing.
Oh
And
my
it
God.
like, and every once in a while, I get Susan Powder comes on my shoulder and starts screaming, stop the insanity, stop the insanity. And I had like a real moment with that. I clearly watched too much TV when I was a kid, but
Oh my
I
God.
had like moments of that where I'm like, at
Sorry.
what point at what point am I going to actually take myself seriously and like take my work seriously
Yeah.
and like really invest in my time and in my energy, and at what point am I going to do that? And so, the pandemic helped to kind of kick my butt, and now the whole thing is set up and it doesn't require nearly the effort that it did before. And so I'm
Mm.
now in a place where this is the kind of thing that can go into kind of maintenance mode more. And now I have space and time to go back into the musical process again.
Oh, wow, wow. And this is also like a gem because I was just having this conversation, oh gosh, yesterday with someone about, how to juggle this. And it's so interesting how you're juggling it, how you're taking the time and you put in you put in the hours, the 4 a.m. hours, and then gosh, a couple of years later. And actually I don't think it would have had to even be a couple of years later.
No, I
Yeah.
mean, somebody said, because I've built up a network of several other women business owners like myself who are kind of doing this thing, and we have calls once in a while. I have a couple of people who I speak to once a month, just as kind of a mastermind, or another entrepreneur who's in music education, one pianist and a couple of singers who I have this relationship with, and one of them said, it's a 5-year thing. Like once you get
Mm.
to the 5-year mark of putting it out there, that seems to be the point at which it comes together. And
Wow.
so for me, this is the 5-year mark because my first course went out in I think April of 2018. And so we're approaching, it's 5 years later. Now, was I super efficient about doing it? No. Did I know what I was doing most of the time? No. But now I do, and it took some
Okay.
time. I didn't go to college for this. I have nothing, no background in this whatsoever. And I kind of cobbled together my own education and a couple of business coachings and, a lot of like reading Brene Brown books and crying and like all the stuff, the usual stuff that's sort of
Mm.
associated with stepping into it. But, I did the work. I had to do the personal work to be able to do it.
Mm.
But, I did it. And I found that my ability to do this is best when I allow myself the space to do it, because again, I can only do 3 things at a time. That's all I can do. And my
Mm.
kid is, I still have like 8 years left with the kid. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like that's not going anywhere.
Hmm.
And I have to continue making a living, so my teaching practice is very important, but now that this business is running, I don't have to launch it anymore. And
Yeah.
so now I've made the space. And so it took some work and some deliberate thinking about it, but again, that's something that I've been saying more and more to the people that I teach and the people that I coach, is like you have to start to think about the pieces of the puzzle and the details of it,
Hmm.
rather than just like, oh, I sure hope I get into this jazz festival, or oh, I hope, like, you have to be thinking further down the line,
All
you
right.
know.
Well, I love this. And I just want to recap just for people that are like, oh, how do I get started? So it sounds like you have a support system. You had a friend that was pushing you and was just like, look. Look, hun, you're hiding, and you listened to your friend. You took a
Yeah.
chance, you did your
Yeah.
self work, and now you have another support system also, and you're giving it time to breathe. So I don't know, did I miss anything? Those seem like really important things.
No, that would be it. And then just, I think too the piece that I see with some people is getting stuck and getting stuck in that, feeling like, and I've heard so many people go, "Oh, I'm going to go in, I have to go do a business degree now because I'm going to do
Mhm.
this thing." And I think a lot of time, or I have to go back to college to get a master's degree, or I can't do the thing. And I'm very much of an autodidact, like the self education as a thing,
Mm.
and self educating meaning watching YouTube tutorials, which is how I learned to produce videos. I've now produced like probably 600, 700 videos.
Oh my
Well,
God.
I spent a lot of time with a couple of GoPro cameras, like screaming the F word because I couldn't figure it out and watching YouTube videos. So like to be able to go through that process and to have that stick to itiveness or the grit or whatever to keep moving through, and then to be willing to go and seek out the sources. So
Mm-hmm.
I've taken online courses in different things. I joined a wonderful sort of mastermind membership for 6 months called the Speakeasy Cooperative, where there was a lot of support and a lot of other people who were trying to do things. And I had business coaches, a couple that were really great, a couple that were so. I took courses in social media marketing. And, it's like,
Mm.
being willing to do that kind of work and to go through it and to say, like, and a lot of it just has to do with just, kind of showing up. You just have to kind of show up and do the stuff.
Okay. Tell me a challenge and tell me a win.
Oh God, I'll be here all day.
Just one.
So I would say one of the biggest challenges of the pandemic for me was the fact that I homeschooled my kid for the entire 2 years that we were on lockdown.
Whoa.
Yeah, and I did it because it was a disaster. It was the distance learning was such a disaster, and I just said, I cannot do this. I just can't do it. And so it was sort of the same thing where I was like, I learned how to do video editing. How hard could it be to teach third grade?
Oh my
And
God.
so, which was insane, but also it was the greatest 2 years of my life. I'll never regret it ever. And so the challenge of that was that I was heavily responsible for this person who needed profound amounts of support. And I also had to teach him all of his classes and kind of know what I was doing with all of that. And so the challenge of that was that takes a lot of time and takes a lot of energy
Mm-hmm.
to do. And, physical energy, mental energy, emotional energy. And it was during that time was when I created the membership. So I did those
Exactly.
two
That's
things consecutively.
what I'm like taking
Yeah.
in. I'm like, wait a minute, this is the same time.
Right. And
Oh
so
my
what
gosh.
the win was in all of this was that I no longer had space for my own crap. I had to figure out every day what the most important thing was and only do that. And it meant that people were asking me like, "Oh, do you want to do like a live stream concert?" And I'm like, "No, I do not." Where people are like, "Oh, do you want to do a?" No, I don't. I don't want to do anything. And I didn't practice. I didn't touch the piano barely at all. If I wasn't
Wow.
teaching, I wasn't practicing. I completely allowed that side of my life to just die. I was like, that's the
Mm.
way it's got to be. But what was such a win is that I found a way to do it, and some of it was just because of my own determination, but also it really forced me to edit a lot. So when
Mm.
people were asking me for things, because again, like sometimes the way that we get socialized is that we're helpers. We're a helper. Call us. I'll help you. Of course, I'll talk to you for hours about how I can help. Obviously, if people, my friends or family needed me, but
Yes.
in general, a lot of those unreasonable requests that kind of constantly come down the pike when you're a helper,
Yeah.
I turned a lot of that off. And I also stopped fiddling around with stuff that was useless for me to do.
Mm.
And was really able to focus on what is the most important thing that I can do today to kind of drive this forward. And it's like was an incredible lesson for me because I thought I don't need to have a global pandemic Like
Mm.
life-changing disaster, epic emergency for me to be able to prioritize my time. I could just prioritize my time.
Oh my goodness.
So, I would
Yeah.
say that was a pretty big lesson and a pretty big win. And now I'm able to get an incredible amount of stuff done because I sort of cut out all the BS and still say no to a ton of stuff all the time. And I'm not helping everybody who wants help.
Hmm.
But I'm really able to just show up and get the job done and still have like a quality of life.
Okay. And so now you're finding that you have the time and the we say the Zeit and Lust to go
Zeitenlust.
the Zeit and Lust. I like this better. I love this phrase. There's certain phrases in German that I love. Yes, but now you have the Zeit and Lust to go and perform and
Yeah.
record and do these things.
Absolutely. And now
Uh-huh.
that my kid is in school again,
Oh my gosh.
I went from having to get up at 4 or work until 1 in the morning, like working in the cracks or putting him on his like science video and like running in and like trying to get things done. Now that he's at school, which by the way, he was at school before the pandemic, and I never had as much time as I have right now. But
Mm.
now he's back at school and I'm looking at my time in a whole different way, and it's really been very very eye-opening. And just to be thinking about my time and my energy and my space and what do I want to do, and do I want to work with so and so, or asking myself questions that I never even thought of in my 20s and 30s,
Yeah.
just never even thought of. And I sure wish I had. I know a lot of the younger women who I'm friends with and know, they seem to have this already. There was no way I was anywhere near this when I was in my 20s and 30s.
I'm like, no, no, I'm still
Mm.
working on it now.
No, I was just blowing in the
God.
wind most of the time. I'm like, what? How do people do all this stuff? But
Oh
I
my
just didn't have
gosh.
that experience. And also, there weren't a lot of other women in the industry because again, as a jazz musician, it was like 99.999 male all the time.
Hmm.
And again, if you don't have any other people around you who can understand, then you can get stuck in gender roles.
Hmm.
You can get stuck as being the person that helps everyone with the thing or that brings the charts, even though anyone else could do it. You can get stuck in those roles until you sort of forget that you have free will in these situations.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that was again like something that just took me as long as it took me to get. And now that I have it, I just feel so much more empowered to be able to do the things that I want to do and to ask for the right amount of money for things, or to ask that my musicians behave a certain way. And if they don't, then I find other, like all that kind of, it's like my tolerance for general shenanigans is quite low now. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So then what's coming up? What are you getting into? Are you going on tour? Are you doing a new project?
I have a project. It's called the Motherhood Project.
Ah.
And I went to the Banff Center for Fine Arts in the mountains of British Columbia, or in Alberta in Canada, back in, so it was the fall of 2019.
Okay.
And I went there with this idea that I had all these fragments of songs that were written about the experience of motherhood, but not just the look at my beautiful baby, I'm so happy in my baby life, but it was really like a more broad experience of like, what does it feel like when your body is changing, or when your relationship is changing, or when you start to look around and you start to think, this system is kind of rigged, you
Oh
know?
my God.
Like
Yes.
how rigged the system is against parents, but particularly mothers, especially in the United States where I live, like where there's no maternity
Mm,
benefits, where there's
mm.
no support, where they don't let you bring a stroller on the bus. You
What?
can't bring a stroller on the bus in New York City. You have to fold your stroller and hold your baby. It's
Really?
crazy.
When did that happen? And who's folding strollers now? Like, do they make foldable strollers?
Yes, I
Jesus.
mean you can't, so
Oh
all of
my
those kinds of things.
God.
So, I went to the Banff Center and I was there for 10 days. I couldn't go, or I was there for 8 days. I couldn't go any longer because I had all my other responsibilities. And I wrote the entire album in 8 days.
Wow.
And so, of course, the irony of it all is that I've been so busy with my actual motherhood that I haven't had time to finish the motherhood project.
Okay.
Um, But I have the 10 songs that are there. One of them is spoken word. It's like a real mix of like some kind of crossover pop stuff and some stuff that's a little bit more experimental, or like an ostinato kind of repeated thing. And it's kind of most of the way ready to go. I'm anxious to sit down, which again, I have this week to finish the last thing for my course. And then I'm going to
Okay.
really give myself the space, but of being able to revisit some of this with fresh eyes. I have some more kind of stories that I want to kind of put together in with it, especially kind of in light of the experience of the pandemic and what that was like being home with my kid 24/7 again for,
Mm-hmm.
2.5 years. So that's the project that is kind of next in line. I'm not completely sure where it's going to land or when I'm going to do it, but I'm kind of giving myself the space to see where it's at. But it could either potentially be recorded next fall, would be a possibility, or sooner or later. So I'm just kind of
Okay.
keeping it open.
Okay. I love that you are using this word open and you've come back to this word because
Hmm.
there's so much self-care in that, and that's something else that is just critical for us to hear.
Absolutely. And I
Mhm,
think the way that the way that the industry is working right now, it's so different than it was even 5 years ago, because
mhm,
a lot of people aren't releasing albums anymore. They're releasing EPs. Like I so many of the singer-songwriters that I work with on a regular basis aren't even doing albums anymore. They're doing EPs, or they're
mhm.
just releasing singles. And so a lot of that kind of stuff and the model is really, really changing, and also audience development and what that looks like. So again, I don't feel that pressure of a similar cycle where you have to have it recorded and then you have to wait 3 months for it to be printed and then you have to send the press copies out. I think a lot of that model is disappeared now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so I don't feel that same pressure of like, oh, if I don't get it done by September, then I won't be able to tour the jazz festivals in the following year. I'm kind of just, let's see where it goes. And I also know that this is going to be a very important project for me. It is a very important project, so I don't see what rushing it or stressing myself out about it is going to help.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited about it, and
Thank you.
specifically and especially because I feel like you were the only person that told me the truth in the beginning, and
Yeah.
I still have that message.
Yeah.
I'm like, you were the only one. Everybody else was like, oh, flowers and sunshine. You were like, listen.
Let me be clear on how sore your nipples will be while you were doing this. I know. And and it's been a blessing or a curse, because some people are like, you're a real Debbie Downer about all of this. But I'm like, no, like nobody told me about this.
Yeah.
Nobody did. And no one shares that information. And then when it happens, you feel so much shame, or you feel so lonely because you're like, everyone
Hmm.
else is enjoying themselves. Like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
And
Mm.
it is a very, very isolating thing,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to what you have to say about that musically and artistically.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Well, Brenda, I'm loving this conversation, and I'm super grateful for your time.
I'm grateful for your time. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Yes. Listen, tell our listeners where they can find you, where we can find your music, where we can find your course.
Oh, sure. So my website is brendaearle.com, EARLE. And that's where you can, find out about my records and performances and all that kind of stuff. It's a little quiet over there right now, but I'm working on it. And then the big hub of all of my educational work is on Piano and Voice with Brenda. And there I have something like 250 blog posts on different subjects related to musicianship, education, piano skills for singers, song tutorials, like gobs and gobs of stuff. And there you can find out where you could, take lessons with me via Zoom, or to check out the membership, which is the Versatile Musician.
Beautiful. And are you on social media also?
I am. I'm on the usuals. I'm on Instagram. I think I'm Brenda Earle Stokes on Instagram, and Facebook, also Brenda Earle Stokes. What are the other ones? Oh, my YouTube channel is Piano and Voice with Brenda. I have a ton of stuff on there, and I post 2 or 3 shorts a week and a full video every week. We're about to get 5,000 subscribers, so that's not nothing. I know. So your listeners can top it over the edge. So you can go there, and then I'm on a TikTok, but I don't know about TikTok. That's not my vibe.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Brenda.
Thank you so much.
The Courageous Voice podcast is a collaboration between Connect.Faith and me, Chanda Rule. Music is by Ike Sturm and production by Jess Burchett. Thanks for listening.